When the pilot of a Citation business jet goes radio silent over Lake Erie, controllers scramble to locate the missing aircraft.
I don't even see him.
He was there, then they X out, and I haven't seen him since.
A closer look at the radar track suggests something has gone terribly wrong. In this video, we'll untangle the complex web of factors that led to the tragic loss of 6 lives on what should have been a routine 30-minute flight. This is the story of November 614 Sierra Bravo. Burke Lakefront Airport in Cleveland, Ohio is quiet as the clock approaches 11 p.m. on Thursday, December 29, 2016. While technically VFR, it's not a good night for flying. Winds gust over 30 knots. Layers of icy clouds loom overhead, scattering snow showers across the city. The thick overcast and new moon has turned the lake into a black hole of darkness. On the ramp, a lone Citation CJ-4, November 614 Sierra Bravo, prepares to brave the winter weather. In the cabin are 4 of the pilot's family members and a close friend, all returning to Columbus after attending a Cavaliers basketball game. It's getting late, and the group is eager for the short flight back to the Ohio State University Airport.
Ground 614, Citation 614 Sierra Bravo at signature ready taxi.
The controller clears 614 Sierra Bravo to runway 24 right. And at 10:56, the pilot begins the takeoff roll. The tower controller watches as the Citation lifts off and begins a right turn over the lake toward the assigned heading of 330 degrees.
6.0 Bravo, contact departure, safe flight.
10 seconds goes by without a response.
6.0 Bravo, Lakefront, are you on?
Again, nothing. Thinking 4 Sierra Bravo might have switched frequencies early, tower calls approach on the landline.
Cleveland?
That's Citation 4 Bravo, come on with you?
No, I saw something come up, hit 3, disappeared on me.
Cleveland Center checks in with Lakefront Tower.
Have you ever got a hold of that Citation?
Negative.
Okay, because all I saw 3,000, then the 28, and then it looked like it turned northeastbound at 13 on the wrong code, and then disappeared.
The reports of a rapid descent are deeply troubling. The controllers quickly alert the Coast Guard about a possible downed aircraft. Using radar data, they pinpoint the Citation's last known position, 2 miles northwest of the airport. If 614 Sierra Bravo has gone down in the frigid lake, time is critical. But nature isn't cooperating.
Coast Guard is en route. They launched a helicopter out of Detroit. Too rough for the boats to go look.
Yeah, we got reported 12 to 15 foot seas out there.
Yeah. Driving in the night, I knew it wouldn't be a good night to be flying.
After days of searching, on January 5th, they finally located the wreckage, lying in 40 feet of water, just 2 miles from the airport. The violent impact fragmented the aircraft, instantly killing all on board. In years past, such destruction might have left many questions unanswered. But the Citation was equipped with 2 vital pieces of technology: a cockpit voice recorder, which was salvaged from the lake, and an ADS-B-out capable Mode S transponder. Together, these systems would help investigators piece together the final moments of November 614 Sierra Bravo. The aircraft's automatic dependent surveillance broadcast, or ADS-B-out system, transmitted critical flight data to ground stations in real time during the flight. Altitude, location, autopilot settings, and more were logged. And the cockpit voice recorder, or CVR, captured engine sounds, the pilot's voice, and alerts from the onboard warning systems. By comparing these 2 sources, NTSB investigators reconstructed the aircraft's final 82 seconds in detail. At 10:56 and 33 seconds, the CVR captures the engine spooling up for takeoff. 36 seconds later, the Citation crosses the departure end of runway 24 right at 215 knots. The autopilot's altitude alert sounds, signaling the aircraft is 1,000 feet below the selected altitude. The pilot begins adjusting the heading selector from the runway heading toward the assigned 330 degrees, but the autopilot was never engaged. During the 11 seconds spent setting the heading bug, the aircraft's bank angle steepens beyond 28 degrees and keeps increasing. 2 seconds later, the climb rate spikes dramatically, over 6,000 feet per minute. The aircraft passes 37 degrees of bank, enters clouds at 1,900 feet, and reaches its maximum pitch of 17 degrees nose up. A second altitude alert sounds, this time warning that the aircraft has exceeded the pre-selected altitude by 300 feet. The Enhanced Ground Proximity Warning System, or EGPWIS, warns the bank angle has passed 55 degrees. Unaware of the situation, Tower instructs 4 Sierra Bravo to contact departure. The CVR records the pilot responding, "To departure, 614 Sierra Bravo," though this wasn't transmitted. Simultaneously, the aircraft reaches its maximum altitude of 2,893 feet before beginning a steep descent. As the aircraft's bank angle peaks at 62 degrees, the pilot attempts to level the wings. Tower calls again as 4 Sierra Bravo passes through its assigned heading. The pilot acknowledges with 614 Sierra Bravo, but again this wasn't transmitted. The CVR captures a sink rate alert,
Sink rate, pull up.
warning of a descent rate exceeding 6,000 feet per minute. As the aircraft reaches an airspeed of 300 knots, the overspeed warning triggers. The Citation plunges below the cloud deck. Just 82 seconds after applying takeoff power, November 614 Sierra Bravo impacts the surface of Lake Erie at 15 degrees nose down and 25 degrees of bank. How could a pilot, whose attitude in the cockpit was described as diligent, systematic, and not easily distracted, lose control so quickly? Investigators turned to the pilot's experience and training records for answers. His logbook revealed 1,205 hours of total time since earning his private pilot certificate in 2004. In January 2015, he earned his Cessna 510 Mustang type rating and logged 373 hours in that aircraft. The Mustang, while similar to the Citation, was not as powerful or fast. On December 8, 2016, just 21 days before the accident, the pilot earned his Citation type rating. The examiner stated the pilot did very well with no issues at all. 13 days before the accident, he attended recurrent citation training at Flight Safety in Florida. Despite the recent lessons, he had only logged 56.5 hours total in the Citation, with just 8.7 hours as pilot in command. His Citation instructor described him as a very sharp guy who came to the lessons prepared. By all accounts, the pilot showed no obvious skill deficits and no red flags. He wasn't brand new to flying fast jets, but there was one detail his instructor provided that caught investigators' attention. Twice during training, the pilot had mistakenly pressed the autopilot transfer button when trying to engage the autopilot. More troubling, he hadn't noticed the error either time. When investigators compared the Mustang and Citation cockpits, they discovered how this minor mistake could add to the confusion at a critical moment. The Mustang's Automatic Flight Control System, or AFCS panel, has the autopilot button on the bottom. The Citation's Flight Guidance Panel, or FGP, has its autopilot button on the top. Crucially, the autopilot transfer button sits in a similar position to the Mustang's autopilot button. Also, the Mustang has an autopilot indicator light right on the panel. In the Citation, pilots must check the primary flight display, or PFD, for activation. According to his instructor, the pilot was trained to use heading mode with the flight director for takeoff, providing lateral guidance on the PFD. After reaching at least 300 feet, he would engage the autopilot. But ADS-B data showed the autopilot was never turned on during the accident flight. If the pilot accidentally pressed the autopilot transfer button instead, here's what would happen. The flight director would disappear from the pilot's PFD and switch to the co-pilot's side. Any active or armed modes, like heading hold, would reset. If the transfer button was pressed a second time, guidance would move back to the pilot side, but any selected modes would reset once again. If the aircraft had more than 5 degrees of bank, the flight director would guide the pilot to hold the pitch and bank at the time of selection. This could cause significant confusion, especially during a high workload period. The autopilot panels are not the only difference between the Mustang and Citation avionics. They use completely different flight displays. The Mustang uses a Garmin G1000 system. At the top of the attitude indicator is a roll index linked to the aircraft's symbol. As the airplane banks, the index points in the direction of roll, called a roll pointer configuration. The Citation uses a Collins ProLine 21 system. Its roll index is slaved to the horizon, known as a sky pointer. When the airplane banks, the roll index points towards the sky, opposite the direction of bank. In a 2002 study, researchers found that roll reversal errors, turning the wrong way to level the wings, were almost 5 times more frequent when using the sky pointer configuration. For a pilot used to a roll pointer, this evidence, along with being somewhat new to the sky pointer, could have made corrective action more difficult when there was little room for error. It's possible that his previous training in the Mustang worked against him. This is called negative learning transfer, and it's a well-known aviation hazard. But none of these factors on their own could fully explain the serious mishandling of the controls. How could a sharp and prepared pilot so quickly end up behind the airplane? When investigators examined the pilot's activities in the days before the accident, they found the final piece of the puzzle. The pilot's colleague reported that the pilot normally went to bed around 10 p.m. and woke around 6 a.m. In the 2 days before the accident, he worked from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., and cell phone records showed he had enough opportunity for a good night's sleep. On the day of the accident, the pilot was at the office around 8 a.m. and left around 4 p.m. He and his 5 passengers left OSU Airport around 5:30 p.m., arrived at Burke Lakefront a half hour later, and then attended the game at 8. Around 10:30, the group arrived back at Lakefront. The pilot had been awake for almost 17 hours at this point, but an FBO representative claimed the pilot seemed fine. However, some of the pilot's actions suggested otherwise. Flight service confirmed that the pilot did not receive a pre-flight briefing from them for the trip back, perhaps in a rush to get home. At 10:44, the CVR captured a discussion about who won the game. The group had evidently left the arena early. Was the pilot feeling pressure to get home? A few additional slips point to mounting fatigue. When the pilot picked up his IFR clearance, he missed the departure frequency. He also didn't read back his takeoff clearance or assigned altitude.
6140 Bravo, Lakefront Tower, 24 right, turn right heading 330, maintain 2000, cleared for takeoff.
Right turn to 330, 6140 Bravo.
And before he took off, he failed to enter his new squawk code.
His departure code was 5744, but it looks like he hadn't switched codes yet when he took off.
Dark night conditions and low clouds can be disorienting, but when combined with fatigue, they can quickly turn deadly. The pilot would have lost visual contact with the Cleveland skyline once the right bank angle went over about 30 degrees. At that point, the pilot's vestibular system, the inner ear organs responsible for balance and spatial orientation, would have been deceived by the aircraft's flight path. Unable to distinguish between acceleration caused by motion and the pull of gravity, the pilot likely experienced a phenomenon known as somatographic illusion, which is profoundly disorienting. Investigators determined that the pilot probably perceived the bank angle as less extreme than it was. Similarly, the aircraft's nose-down attitude during the descent may have felt like level flight to the pilot. In such conditions, pilots are trained to rely on their instruments rather than their senses. But when those same instruments add to the confusion, overcoming spatial disorientation becomes an almost impossible challenge. In response to the NTSB's preliminary report, 2 pilots shared their experiences departing Burke Lakefront at night. Both described the disorienting transition when turning away from Cleveland's lights into what one called absolute darkness over Lake Erie. The other pilot described conditions over the lake as a black hole, no visible horizon, no stars, and no lights. Instantaneous IFR conditions, as they put it. Without successfully transitioning to instruments, one pilot felt certain that severe spatial disorientation would have been unavoidable. In their final report, the NTSB concluded that spatial disorientation was the probable cause of this accident. Contributing factors included fatigue, confusion over autopilot modes, and negative learning transfer from prior flight experience. This tragedy touches every element of the PAVE checklist, a pre-flight tool pilots can use to identify risk in 4 different categories: the pilot's fatigue, the recent transition to a new aircraft, the dark overwater environment, and the external pressures to get home after a late night, all combined to undermine the safety of this flight. It's a sobering reminder that the safest choice is often the simplest. When in doubt, wait it out. For the pilot of November 614 Sierra Bravo, staying in a hotel for the night would have saved 6 lives. Thanks for watching, and fly safely.